Alright guys, so yesterday the devs formally blew the lid off with talking about episode 4 due on this coming Tuesday, and they really bombed a lot of information out there, so I decided to separate the trailer analysis and long discussion I had to do there from the rest of it. If you've missed the trailer analysis, there'll be a link in the description, you can check that out. That was just a couple of hours ago really, and now I want to talk about some of the other stuff that's coming. So at the end of the trailer, we saw this image here that listed out all the various features that would come, though the trailer itself never really demonstrated what a lot of them were or how they'd appear. That's what this video is going to do, because the information is out there, it's just not on the trailer. It's instead from Tumblr and Twitter, and massively had an article with some stuff, a press kit that they gave to people, and on and on and on. So let's break it down, and I guess I'll start off, waste no time, by talking about the Sun's Refuge. Now, because I already did a dedicated video on the Sun's Refuge, and we talked about it a lot on the trailer yesterday, I won't add a huge amount here, but here's the dev's official description, that we can upgrade this ancient cavern into a perfect shelter for your allies. Catch up with them and they may have information that will lead you to new content and rewards. So we do get a little bit there. For what it's worth, you guys noted that the Order of Shadows dude, I think you see there, is supposed to be Keto, and a lot of familiar NPCs from the story are there. And that seems to be the idea, that just as we did 250 years ago, we're going to use this cave to hide, but this time maybe from rogue factions of Awakened and, of course, Cataract himself. But the thing that really catches my eye, and this is where I have to hold back my enthusiasm, is that last bit, that it will be a place leading us to new content and rewards. Now, those of you who follow me for a long time will know one of my greatest desires for the Order headquarters, which in many ways function just like personal story instances and what the Sun's Refuge will likely end up being, was that those Order headquarters should function as hubs you can go to lead you to world bosses around the world. And I've always liked the idea that as you do a world boss train, you can choose to do it for the Order of Whispers or the Priory or for the Vigil, and players can like compete in small ways, gain faction, a bit like we did in the original game. It obviously never happened, but it's interesting now they say this, that it's a feature and a place to lead us to new stuff. Does that mean it will be a similar kind of thing? It's going to show us when various big events proc, but only around Elonan territories? And is this going to then tie into how we build the place up? That would put it kind of aligned to how it was in Guild Wars 1. And is it a coincidence that I'm saying and thinking all of this just a couple of days after the devs released a World Boss Portal Stone timer device natively in-game for the first time on the gem store? Is that a coincidence? Or maybe is that going to be a function of the Sun's Refuge and they kind of wanted to cash in a quick buck before it became a feature for everyone? So that's all really. You guys know the deal. There's much more juicy stuff to talk about. What you've been looking at in the background, for what it's worth, is not just trailer footage, but a couple of screenshots too that came exclusively from the website and weren't featured there. Shows the cave in a little bit of a darker environment, some, you know, greater sense of the whole place, but not much more to say. Let's talk about where this patch will actually be, and that is the Jahi Bluffs. So the dev's description here is that it is nestled between Vabi and Corner. The Jahi Bluffs have witnessed crucial turning points in Elonian history. Now, Cataract's vicious storms and branded army sweep across the land, covering it in crystalline scars. I really feel like the devs released too much information too quickly. They could literally just say to the world, episode 4 is the Jahi Bluffs. Just those 5 words. And we would have had a billion things to talk about and speculate on all the way through like last week. Why do it all at once? But so let's actually jump into it this time. And I really feel that the Jahi Bluffs, as they're describing it, and we don't know the full territory of the map just yet, probably will contain the most interesting stuff that Corner has to offer, which is great. Certainly much more than the domain of Corner had from last release. And I'd like to demonstrate that to you quite plainly through using that Shaman's historical guide. Any excuse we can get to bust this thing out. So Shaman's actually been doing a lot of upgrades to this recently. You can actually now straight up click various points of interest and it will throw up the Guild Wars 1 wiki corresponding page. Really phenomenal work. But so here's what we're dealing with, okay? This is Elona. This is, if you guys are unfamiliar, I talk about this on many of my videos. It's an overlaid map of both games, the original and the sequel, showing all the key locations from both. So, obviously we're looking at Elona in Guild Wars 2, but why is there like this ghostly outline up here? Well, that was a map you could explore in Guild Wars 1 called the Sunward Marches. Currently not available in Guild Wars 2, but because the devs so accurately replicate the geography of the two games, you can actually get a real sense of how close or far away things should be. And quite often, you'll find it's really surprising just how perfectly stuff lines up. So to very briefly look at the last release, you know, Gandara is in the exact same place as Gandara was before. The Bokos prison is at the exact same place. The Dejarin estate, you know, and many of these areas' namesakes and things are coming in full force with Path of Fire. You know, this next map they're calling the Jahi Bluffs. Well, that was a map in Guild Wars 1. Here it is. It's to the north of the previous, so I am expecting a fairly big chunk very close to the last map. And I'll straight away say, I'm excited at the prospect that this could be the first time in any Living World season that we see a new Living World season map connect directly to another new Living World season map. No, seriously, like, think about it. Way back in Season 2, yeah, we had Drytop and the Silver Wastes. Let's zoom all the way down. But Drytop never connected directly to the Silver Wastes. We had to go via other maps. With Season 3, we were all over the world, right? So it never came up. But, you know, you were a Bloodstone Fen over here, Lake Doric. There wasn't a second map next to Lake Doric, was there? There wasn't a second map next to Bitterfrost Frontier. The closest, I guess, we got was in the Fire Island chain, but even that's so far away, and there were separate islands, and they massively changed the map art, frankly, each time they released one of those. So could this be it? Will the previous map have a portal that we can walk through? It's one of those silly little fluffy things you guys might be rolling your eyes at, but I love and really care about for immersion's sake. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that a Episode 3 only player who doesn't have Episode 4 because they didn't log in at the right time would be able to use the portal and bypass it. They'd have some kind of mechanic as a gating thing, but that'd be so good. Anyway, yeah, I think we're dealing with the north, and here's the Sunspear Sanctuary as we knew it in the original game. Let's talk about this a bit, because they were kind of cheaty with Nightfall back in the day. The Sunspear Sanctuary itself is a fairly small map. You can see that Shaman's got this vague outline here demonstrating it, but it really didn't cover all of this geography. All this terrain smack bang here in corner, we couldn't actually explore in the original game. You'd like walk through, you'd hit a portal here, where my cursor currently is, and then you'd appear all the way out over here, in the middle of the Jahi Bluffs, or all the way over here at a place called the Sunward Marches. So when it comes to Guild Wars 2 replicating these places and visiting all this terrain, the devs kind of have free reign to be as creative as they like and do all kinds of stuff, because being on the surface there was not a thing we had experience of. We were only ever underground in the cave. And so if the Sunspear Sanctuary, now known as the Sun's Refuge, is returning, what does that mean for here? This is Guild Wars 2. Look at the way they do the Tangled Depths and various, you know, implementations of lots of verticality on their maps. Maybe we really will have a map, the Jahi Bluffs, that has all the surface gameplay, and also deep underground, it's kind of a real cave that we enter as an instance afterwards. I'd love that. So, yeah, that's one thing. I'm not quite sure how far to the left, basically, the map will go. But look at the places we can go here. First, you got a garrison. Corner was well known for having a garrison per map back in the day. So you had a garrison at the Jahi Bluffs, you had a garrison at the Sunward Marches, garrison at Margaret Coast. There was a garrison all the way over here as well, where we got the Domain of Corner this time, the Zelban garrison, and that's the exact place that in last patch we take that portal through and attack immediately that Palawa Joko's forces have taken over. So if we saw Joko's forces took over an old Corner garrison here, could they have done it on this one as well? And we'll get the Jahi garrison back. I think that's very likely. But that's the least interesting of them all, guys. Check it out. We've got the monument to the defeat of Palawa Joko. We've actually got the place that Palawa was entombed and restricted and held for hundreds of years by the Order of Whispers before finally breaking free. I talked about this on the trader analysis video, but the idea that this patch, whether just in the open world or the core storyline, actually lets us explore that tomb would blow my mind. The devs did really well with the Tomb of the Primeval Kings, way up north here. In Guild Wars 1, you kind of just saw the entrance. You couldn't go inside. In Guild Wars 2, none of you can look me in the eye and say that they didn't do excellent, actually providing a real tomb we can go in and rob and look at with all the beautiful gold and stuff around. Let's see where it was that Palawa was entombed, and if we get the Jahi Bluffs, guys, that's very likely to be a part of it. We've also seen that there's a ton of brand. Unfortunately, it looks like Kraukatorix branded it, so it might just be all crystally now and kind of boring and not intact. But we'll see. Maybe they can do something cool. You've also got, just slightly to the north, even more exciting places. I don't know how far... If we're going all the way over here to the Sunspear Sanctuary, can we expect the floodplain of Mankellen, the Mankellen Waterworks? Data mining did suggest that these might be coming because there was an update to the world map art. If you guys remember a few months ago I talked about, there was an update to the Fortress of Jahi too. So this was a great fortress, essentially on the boundary between what we might consider Corner and Vabi to the north. There was a barricade for you in the original game, and you had to be forced through these caves all the way over here, the Baddock Caverns. I really doubt we'll get that this patch, but we should probably see the fortress at least, no? And if they go far enough north, we won't quite get to Vabi, though that would be an incredible map, right? But we are now looking at the Chantry of Secrets. This is possibly, I mean, if we were way back before Path of Fire came out, and you said, Wood of Potatoes, we're going to Corner, what are you most looking forward to, all these areas of the world? I would probably put this in the top 3 of my top 10 list of places I want to go back to. The Chantry of Secrets. Most of you guys just know about the one in the Blood-Tide Coast, way up to the north. This is the original one, and I really want to see how the Order of Shadows have tweaked the place and how it has lasted these past 250, coming up on 260 years since we last saw it. This could be so fun, and the original statue to Cormyr at that. Come on, there's got to be great stuff there, guys. Still not done. Here you can see a place called the Grand Cataract of Jahi. That actually was only available in the bonus mission pack where you played as Chirai Oster himself and where Palawa was defeated, entombed very nearby. So it'd be cool to see that. I was speculated at the start of last release when we heard that we were going to Corner if some of the big cliffs might have been that Grand Cataract. Well, now it looks like we've got a much higher chance to actually see that. And then we can maybe even think about Chirai's procession. We're not very close to the Desolation. So I don't think we'll really see too much there. I'm not sure how far up we'll be able to go, but the most interesting landmark here would be the Ancestor Tree, and perhaps how that relates to Centaurs and even Sylvari's story, but I'll hold my enthusiasm there. So yeah, just an excellent place. Certainly not all of Corner by any stretch of the imagination. We do have all this stuff here too, and I wonder whether the Sunspear Sanctuary will kind of key into the Jahi Bluffs this release, and then next episode, maybe one to the north, next episode, one to the south again, a little bit like how it was in the original game, and we could go back to the Yolan Haven and stuff. This is why it's kind of cool that we've got a Season 4 and 5 to deal with in these areas of the world, right? That's the actual Guild Wars 1 locations through the historical guide, but we're not done yet. Another very exciting thing comes from the official screenshots the devs revealed, which show off this guy. Oh boy. All right, so we know that there's going to be Brand. We know that there's probably going to be big meta events and fun stuff to do. There's a new world boss, clearly, right, guys? We are looking at the Shatterer. And a slightly different, tweaked, new 2.0 version of the Shatterer right down here near Kralkatoric's current resting place. This is brilliant. Okay, so back up. You might think, why is there another Shatterer here in this expansion? We dealt with him years ago. You have to remember the Shatterer is really just a title, a name for great beasts of the brand that are created. And, you know, with the one we kill back in Corteria, it shatters in the sky, and then a new one flies in, and then we take that out, and a new one flies in. They repeatedly being spawned, but the game's always done a poor job kind of showing that because it's only ever been one creature in Blaze Ridge. Well, look, it would just make so much sense for in these deeper areas of the brand, way down here, we get another Shatterer. The devs also had some old stories. If you've been watching the Let's Play recently, you'll know about where they kind of suggested that the branded are always migrating through the brand toward their Elder Dragon. And I wonder whether this time we get to see a bit more, we'll look at that more. Don't forget that this season of Living Worlds so far hasn't given us the brand itself. The last we saw it was at the release of the expansion. And what a way to start off the Shatterer. You guys probably can understand my excitement a little more than most nerds here because, you know, I got such a connection to this boss. He was the original demo guy, the first demonstration of how big and great dynamic events could be in Guild Wars 2. They did that update, which I was generally let down by, but not entirely, a couple of years back now. And here we get Shatterer 3.0. Can't wait to see what they do. And of course, we can see he's got some slight visual tweaks and changes. The coloring a little bit closer to Vlast as well. And I wonder whether they'll key into that a little bit. But so there you go. Lots to be excited about with Jahi. And I can't wait to get in. Next item on the list from that, you know, big bullet point on the trailer is this thing, the new mastery. Yay, a new mastery, guys. Isn't this the highlight of every patch? It's called the Bond of Vigor. and the official description is to unlock the ability to temporarily increase your mount's endurance regeneration. So, I know that we had last patch the roller beetle and all that kind of stuff going on, but if you think about it, this is actually pretty in line with some of the other ones they've done. They're all like mount interacting. What obviously springs to my mind is the idea of healing your mount we got before. So what are we expecting? A new utility skill, kind of like our heal skill unlocked for us before, and increasing our endurance regeneration. That isn't gonna be a linear buff to all mounts. Some mounts are going to get much more benefit from something like that than others. I guess it depends on the cast time and the cooldowns and all that kind of stuff, but I really am very curious in how this might adjust Raptor and Jackal's speed for general purpose movement. And then the highlight, obviously, guys, this skill is going to be amazing on the roller beetle. It's going to be another fresh coat of paint on all the roller beetle races. You'll recall that they did some quality of life updates for the roller beetle recently where you get more endurance when you hit into walls and stuff. Now we get this too, and you'll be able to like boost along, hit that utility skill or whatever it is, and then boost along again straight away. You'll be able to get on the beetle and immediately fill up the endurance bar to just charge forwards. And I wonder, yeah, what really is going to feel great about this on the other mounts? I guess time will tell. Alright, bear with me though, guys. We're still in the thick of it. There's a lot of cool stuff here. Next, let's talk about the raid. A new raid coming this release. We had a Fractal last release. Raid this one. I'm hoping we'll see Fractal the one after. There's still that big question on everyone's mind. Why has it taken a really long time since the Hall of Chains to get our next raid? But here it is. The Myth-Right Gambit. And shock, horror, surprise, it's not a continuation of the Underworld story and the Desmina story. So, I'm assuming you know about the Hall of Chains at this point. That ended with the Reapers being taken out and Desmina kind of sinisterly suggesting she was going to be the new Lord and, you know, over all that region. The question being, what will she do with it? There's so many more areas of the Underworld to explore. So, it kind of made sense to think that just as Heart of Thorns raids linked together into this trilogy, maybe they might do the same in the Underworlds. They didn't. They seem to prefer standalones. I guess logistically it might be more easy for them to implement. But here it is. The Myth-Right Gambit. Zomaros has extended an unusually gracious invitation to visit the Mystic Forge. Touring an eccentric djinn's vast treasure houses can't be that risky, but you should probably repair your gear just in case. Right, a pretty waffly sentence. Obviously, gear repairing. I mean, is gear repairing going to be a mechanic in the raid? And this is a really sly way of them talking about it? Probably not. But the raid is in the Mystic Forge, which is fascinating, really. Very on point and on theme and in keeping with Path of Fire. It means that they can utilize a lot of the POF assets, definitely. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they decided to go with this. But look at the screenshots, guys. Actually, the thumbnail I used for yesterday's video is the raid itself. And so we can pick at all sorts of stuff here. Loads of gold, piles, and heaps of treasure. Very much like you might expect the hidden city of Adashim to look, which could be a candidate for a Living World release eventually. And I guess the idea is these are all the loot that various players are constantly throwing in the Forge. I wonder if that's just for ambience, or it's actually a mechanic, and it's like a bullet hell thing where you have to dodge and use lots of WS and D to get around. A bit like that final phase of Sabbather, for example, as we are doing whatever we're doing. It looks truly gorgeous. I mean, check out those floating buildings and things in the background. Reminds me a lot of Wing 3 there, and this could easily be one of the prettiest raids that they've done. Easily. A very fresh twist as well on what was quite drab and grim in both Bastion and the Hall of Chains, which were the two more recent ones. So what's interesting about this, maybe even further still, is you could remember in Vabby, there's already a dynamic event where you kind of plunder your way into this cage, this hidden hideout, and you're like on the other side of the Mystic Forge, right? So I assumed that was in the Forge, or the legendaries were there. Is that not true? Are we going just even deeper into that cave? Is that where the raid entrance will be? And they'll ask people to do that dynamic event to get in there? I seriously doubt that. Or have I been missing the picture here, and we're actually supposed to go into the Forge itself between these two entrances we were looking at before? Curious to see how the devs will explain that, and of course, just the story in general. Zomerus is quite an enigmatic figure, something we don't really know very much about. You know, there's been data mined stories and things compiled over the years where they were going to have him speak in Lion's Arch and all that sort of stuff. Is this going to be their opportunity now to actually get us to meet this guy and properly speak and communicate, understand what he's like, learn a bit more about Miani at the same time? Could be good. And again, learning more about him as a Djinn with the Path of Fire expansion definitely works. They could even do a good segue into something like the hidden city of Adashim through secondary achievements and stuff at some point in the raid, or maybe as the stinger of the story in there. So we do, of course, also have the screenshots that have been rolling by. I'll draw attention to the fact we are looking at some kind of new version of the Keep Construct fight there. I doubt that's a final boss or anything. A sinister-looking character in front. Is that a fire Djinn? Zomeros is a water Djinn, for what it's worth, so I don't think that that's him. I also don't think that necessarily Zomeros is the final boss, as a lot of people have been suggesting online, unless I'm missing a blatant basic fact that's been thrown out through one of the media sites recently. It's just that he invited us in, and we don't know why. It could be that he's under threat. And maybe these other Djinn are angry at him and the way he's doing things now. Maybe they want to hide more. So we'll see. Don't forget as well that the Djinn were demonstrated in Path of Fire to have a unique resistance to Elder Dragon corruption and stuff, like those ones defending against the brand. Could be a perfect patch to throw this in and explore more of that. Here's another screenshot. Looks fairly similar to the other ones we've seen, but maybe is that, what, some portal action going on there? Interesting to see how the devs might have pushed the mechanics of the game engine. You'll get all that raid coverage as I go forward. I'm still trying to decide if I should stream it, which might be a really great and easy, lazy way of covering stuff. So let me know if you're interested in that, guys. Don't let me forget, there's also this screenshot, which if it wasn't for the file name explicitly marking it as Mithrite Gambit, I might have mistaken for the Sun's Refuge and thought, oh, look, you can do decorating in the Sun's Refuge, since those are Guildhall balloon decorations back there. But no, I think it's just a representation of the eclectic collection of items that Zomeros has gathered throughout the years. So that's the raid. I will talk a tiny bit more about the raid when we get to one of the third-party websites soon. So hang in there. There's another very exciting bombshell. But next, let's talk about the legendary as the devs give it to us. This is Ziquatl. I hope I'm saying that right. And it is the new legendary of this release, and it's a Scepter. So this is coming in replacing Meteorologicus. Remember, when you look at this thing, you're comparing it and balancing it with the old one, because it's going to try and suit a need that the last one didn't. Meteorologicus is beautiful, and especially for me as a bit of a lore nerd, I like looking at all the constellations and the actual shape of the globe and whatnot. But I think it's fair to say that the game was missing a bit of a darker tone Scepter for the Necros out there. Maybe some of the other classes too, and the devs hit a pretty good balance here. Don't forget that they also replaced the Minstrel with the Binding of Ipos, so Necros and people who like that flavor already had a pretty good one on the casting side, so they didn't have to go too deep with it. Here's what the devs say. This mysterious obelisk houses a winged serpent familiar who will faithfully accompany you in battle, which is very cool. Hints at that gimmick. Now, the name and kind of the design, it seems to be some real-world referencing Aztec-y kind of stuff, which definitely has its moody elements. As an uncultured man, I'm not really sure what it is, so pulled from the top paragraph of Wiki here. In Aztec religion, Ziquatl was a mythological serpent. It was regarded as the spirit form of Zihuatecuhtli, the Aztec fire deity, and was also an atlatl wielded by Huizipulticli. It's a classical Nahuatl word that literally translates as turquoise serpent. It also carries the symbolic and descriptive meaning fire serpent. So the serpent itself doesn't look too fiery. Here's the screenshots that the devs have provided for us, but it does look pretty nice. Kind of reminiscent almost of the Mystic Dragon mini we got a while back for the Guild Wars 1 fans, maybe Salt Sprays and Kunavang. But the bigger question to me is obviously not that real world stuff, but the in-game lore justification of what it is and tidbits. Do you guys remember last release where they were talking about Verdurak and we got that extra lore on the website? Let's get it for this as well. More, please. So the gimmick, of course, is that you get a little pet that will actually move with you, which really feels like the next step, the next logical thing for legendary weapons to be doing. We've seen that they've been flirting with this for so long, right? I mean, Shushadu, Nevermore, Chukran Champwat, there are so many of these weapons that are all about building a bond with some companion, and to one extent or another, they've tried to represent it in the weapons. This time, they go the whole way and give you an extra thing to hang out with you. I hope it's not that it unlocks a mini, but it is an actual thing that stacks on top of your mini. and what other companions you have. And I also hope that it's not weirdly bound to your character, say, like the Aurora effect is. I want it to be a real independent, individually moving thing. So the devs gave a Twitter teaser, but you'll notice from the way that it's framed and shot, you can't actually tell what the real behavior will be like, because... as you can see from that, they only walk in a straight line. Show me it turning, do a jump, do a dodge, move some interesting ways, and let's see what it does. I do have another thought with this gimmick as well, if they've done very well with it, and I just mentioned Aurora, in fact. Don't forget that with the new raid coming out this release, that could mean we can build our Hateful Swirl ring precursors closer to the final thing, and when we get a legendary ring from the raids, if it's this episode or even further down the line, what will the special thing the ring gives us be? Maybe that question is answered. The tech that we see here with the Scepter, they could apply to the legendary ring, which gives us some kind of other companion or set piece to our character that isn't so tightly bound to us as, say, Aurora was. So maybe the devs are kind of hitting two birds with one stone there. Just a theory, though. So that's it. I don't really have much more to add. I wish I knew more about this kind of Aztec mythology and stuff. I'm getting serious flashbacks to when I did the Machine for Pigs LP, where I'm sure I was looking into this back then too. But you guys can let me know if you think Legendary looks good. Moving on to the next category, the new upgradable armor set. They say, complete the A Star to Guide Us story to begin collecting and upgrading the new Elegy set and make Compassion your armor. So what it seems to me is that this will be our long-term grind, reason to keep playing the game and farm and, build stuff up. This is what I hope, in addition to the Sun's Refuge, really encourages us to not just play in the Jahi Bluffs, but all the maps and keep that retention ball rolling, which was the one thing that Episode 3 didn't do so well with. So we really don't know too much more than that on how it will work, what kind of currencies and things we'll need. They call it here the Elegy set. So obviously Elegy Mosaics were one of the prominent currencies used for some crafting and skin acquisition in POF, and if they provide another decent sync for that, that could be really good game-wide, or expansion-wide I should say, for people to go to all those places and keep getting those. If this comes part and parcel of a fresh pass over all the Path of Fire materials, incentives, economies and stuff, that could be really good, but we don't know. Aside from that, as someone that doesn't care too much about how it looks, what else is there to say? Well, it's exciting that once again we have more new in-game acquirable armor, a full set, not like one piece. They haven't just gone gloves. You get a full set. It's not gem store. They're doing everything they can to shed that reputation, and that's probably why it's so prominently featured on this marketing stuff, even though there's not much there to talk about. I'll note some of the screenshots you've been looking at for this feature come from the Guild Wars 2 Tumblr, and I read that it's possible some of the NPCs at the recent Festival of the Four Winds re-release were sneakily wearing some of this. So the devs might have been teasing that it was coming. Maybe we should keep our eye out when Halloween releases. Could see even more there at that point, no? It's not a very flashy set, I give you that. But if there's anything to be excited about, it's that for all weight classes and both genders, it's trousers. Something the game's got a little bit of a shortage of up until now. So the last thing to talk about before we leave is one of the things I've got in the title there. It's thanks to the Massively OP article. They had a scoop that was really minimal, didn't say much. Here they say, hot on the heels, quoting the devs, hot on the heels of the events of Episode 3, Alona can finally begin rebuilding now that Palawa Joko is gone for good. However, the commander and the combined forces of Tyria have to grapple with the grave danger of Cataract, who players worked tirelessly to save from Balthazar's wrath, still poses to the world. That's a really nice quote, actually, because that's a side of the patch maybe we'll see a lot of. We just saved this Elder Dragon, and now we're going to be fighting against it so much. Maybe the sting of that will lead to some criticism amongst the characters of the world. They also have this small paragraph, quality journalism, typos abound, expect the new Jahi Bluffs, a treacherous landscape branded by Cataract, the new Mithrite Gambit raid, in which players went to the Mystic Forge and come face to face with the Jinn Zomoro. But what's really interesting is not what they wrote, but just that they rehosted some images clearly given to them from the devs. And they have some slightly different screens. So look at this one here. This is of an alternate angle of Neo Shatterer roaring. And most juicily, this one right here, called Mythrite Gambit 04, not a part of the press pack thing that they gave to players directly. It's a Largos in the raids. So, the reason this was only on their site and not elsewhere, does that suggest that the devs kind of decided they didn't want to reveal a Largos would be in it until later, but the spoiler's out now? Here it is, guys. We see a new room. We see a hostile Largos. This is clearly going to be a boss or a trash mob, I guess, maybe. We see a player with an AoE attached to them, a bit like lightning would come down and strike us on Spirit Road, for example, or many other places. The ceiling has that Draconis Mons phospholuminescent plant stuff on it. But obviously the big ticket item is, why are we fighting a Largos? Some people have been really confused by this. I think it makes a lot of sense. Largos are assassins, right? They take out contracts on worthy marks and they go for it. The Let's Play just very recently was covering them heavily, and if you look back at that stuff at core, it's really clear that they look for rare and badass game. They try to take it out. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was a Largos, I'd probably look at Zomeros as a pretty cool target. So maybe this is one of the things that happened. Largos has got trapped in the Mystic Forge, pursuing its prey, and now Zomeros has invited us in to deal with it. Maybe the Largos isn't the only one, and every single encounter we deal with is a different thing that's trying to hunt him down for its own reasons. Whatever it is, I'm sure they can justify it very well. There's also that tentative connection of the fact that Zomeros is a water djinn. I'm just happy to see more Largos in the game actively being touched on, because they are a very cool race. I believe the last time we saw them in a recent patch was, funnily enough again actually, I just mentioned it, Draconis Mons, where we found a dead one on the shores up there, probably also taking its own big mark, trying to hunt down Primordus, and, you know, doing a bit of a bad job at it. So, yeah, very thrilling, and if that's a full-fledged boss, not trash, not some smaller thing, I will be thrilled to see those beautiful spiraling, cool Largos animations going all over the place, and how the devs can repurpose that into a full-scale encounter. So there you have it, guys. You basically, at the end of this video, know everything the internet knows. They may keep bombing and dropping information, and I'll try to keep you in the loop as the week goes along. Don't forget to check out the full frame-by-frame of the trailer itself and discussion we did yesterday. There were some brilliant comments there, people pointing out all kinds of little things we missed. And as well, I did just upload another special treat to do with Guild Wars 1 skills. Nothing to do with this patch, but you get to see my gorgeous hands. So cheer, guys. I hope you've been enjoying the stuff. I hope it's not too spammy, but I've been trying really hard in the past little while, since I know a lot of you aren't interested in watching the work on the LP anymore. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you tomorrow for more. Thanks, guys.